Gigguk! Oh, Gigguk! Gigguk is descending from the heavens to give us yet another video. He's blessing us. Gigguk, I love you. Mwah. Gigguk uploaded the death of classic anime. Seems to be a really interesting topic. We're gonna react to it. We're gonna see what we think about what he says. He's usually always right. So let's get right into it. Be sure to follow my Twitch, twitch.tv/craftingvideo, to not miss me reacting to some bullshit. It's really good. Hell yeah.
The concept I feel has died as of late within our community. One that used to be a standard part of getting into the medium, and that is the idea around classic anime. Anime that defined their generation and pioneered the landscape you see today. It used to be mandatory to at least go back and watch a handful of them, but nowadays not only is there less obligation to get yourself cultured by watching these shows, I also kind of feel like no matter how great any new anime coming out is, there's nothing that really sticks out to me that we could call a modern classic. I offhandedly mentioned in my Best of Anime 2018 video that despite how great I thought last year was, it had zero classics, which was more my way of describing that no matter how good any show was, it seemed to lack a sense of impact and longevity that a lot of greater years of anime had. But it certainly sparked an unintentional debate in the comment section about what exactly a classic even is and whether it's too early to judge. So today I wanted to really dig in on that exact topic, what's lacking today, and really remind everyone why they were important in the first place.
I feel like I might
There's a
not
lot of
agree
different
with
things
this
I want to
video.
unpack in this video,
Maybe.
so without further ado, let's just jump into it. What makes a classic?
That's
FM. I don't think I need to state that the exact
too hard of a
parameters of
question.
what defines a classic is entirely subjective and probably different for every person.
that too.
But I guess I just did anyway. Most common definitions of the word in a broader sense simply play it out to be something of universally recognized quality and established ongoing value. However, for the sake of the argument I'm making, for me, it boils down to three main points. Number one, staying power. Classics are classics because they have stood the test of time. No matter how many years pass, they will still be relevant in their own way. There are many older anime that have aged in some way, mainly to do with their art style or animation, but have preserved a sense of timelessness with either their story or characters that can be enjoyed in any era. As a side note, there have been many shows that set trends and pioneered legendary tropes on the bleeding edge of what was fresh and significant in the time they came out, but have lost a lot of their luster through these elements becoming oversaturated years
It
later.
was less
The Vision of
saturated
Escaflowne, for
before
example, pioneered a
the
lot of
industry.
things, and there was a time it was considered a classic, and I'm sure many still do. Now though, it's a lot harder to recommend for newer audiences, as most people who watch it for the first time could see it as some generic isekai mecha show because of how overplayed many of its tropes have become since, and in my opinion, no matter how revolutionary a show is, this is a test it has to overcome. Which brings me to point number two.
Monka
Impact.
TOS.
I feel there needs to be a level of impact and influence because logically it must have been able to impact in its own time in order for it to be remembered. And this goes in two ways: an impact on the anime industry itself that influences future titles and the landscape of anime, or an impact on anime pop culture and the general audience of the time. I don't think I need to clarify what kind of impact anime like Neon Genesis Evangelion or Akira had, but I could talk about more recent anime that had a profound impact on anime pop culture. If I shouted the phrase, and this is to go even further beyond, or just who the hell do you think I am, how many of you would immediately know what I'm talking about? Some classics I feel only has an impact on the industry, some on pop culture, and some doing both. But I think it's important because if an anime hits every other category but isn't that popular or widely influential, in my opinion it's closer to a cult classic. And finally, number three. Quality. The term classic surely implies that there would be a certain level of quality or critical acclaim behind it. You can have something that's remained relevant for years and is also widely influential, as you would see with a lot of gateway anime, but unless there's a general agreed consensus that it's up to a certain level of high standards, people won't take it seriously. I think the best example of this is the Sword Art Online franchise, which is still way more relevant than arguably any other anime that came out in the same year, and undoubtedly has had the popularity to back it up while influencing the landscape of modern anime. But would anyone actually call this a classic?
No.
Now, with these points in mind, how many, if any, could you apply all three criteria to an anime today?
If you put
To
those
me, it's
criteria,
the feeling
it's
of a modern
hard.
classic that's been missing from anime recently, and I don't want you to get the impression that that means anime has gotten worse. Quite the opposite, in fact. I think it's better than it's ever been, and that might actually be it. Never before has such a wide variety of high-quality anime been available to us in a constant drip feed of seasonal content, never giving us a moment's rest. We've been spoiled for choice, and it kind of shows when I think this spring season is kind of weak just because it only has 2 shows I'm super hyped for, and 5 shows I think are pretty good. Get out of here. What do you mean I'm not literally spending every free moment trying to keep up with shows worth watching like the last 2 seasons? Oh God, what a
There's actually too much to keep up
well,
with.
there are less shows pioneering
year.
new things, which is understandable considering how old this medium is right now. I think the average quality and very certainly the quantity of choice has gone up, but that's the thing. If everything's special, nothing is. Of all the 3 criteria, it's staying power that seems to be missing most of the time. Current trends and hype series cover the majority of what remains relevant and impactful throughout the wider community. With the sheer density of new series being fed to us every season, it can become easy to forget even great shows. We used to complain that anime used to have filler seasons. Now, it feels like we have filler anime. You could argue that it's far too early to determine which recently aired anime has staying power, but I'd argue that you'd be hard-pressed to find any show that lingers around for longer than 3 months, let alone years or decades later. Just because not a lot of time has passed doesn't mean you can't have a good idea of what will stick around. There have been plenty of sporting events that have been labelled an instant classic. As soon as the last episode of Breaking Bad aired, I knew it was going to go down in television history, and with what Infinity War and Endgame have achieved and how much is permeated into general pop culture, I have no doubt they will become classics that have defined this generation. On a rare occurrence though, I will watch an anime that does something special that would stay in my mind for a very long time, even in this climate. Something that goes above and beyond, even compared to the best, and has that special X factor you rarely see. The anime that I would say has come closest to becoming a classic recently is Mob Psycho 100 Season 2. Hell, I know many of you would probably argue it already is, and I completely get that. Season 2 of Mob Psycho is one of the best anime series I've seen in years that completely blew the first season out of the water. It somehow leveled up its orgasmic animation with some of the best fight scenes of the last decade, and paired this with the heart and intimate character writing that wasn't as prevalent before, while ending every major plot thread it had set up, resulting in an all-round package that will certainly stick with me for years to come. It was just such a perfect storm of greatness on every level that you rarely get to see. So what exactly is it missing? Well, it's precisely because it's a season 2. As much of a masterpiece as I think it was, a lot of people dropped off after season 1, which is to be expected in the fast-paced seasonal anime cycle and an over 2-year gap between seasons. Even I had trouble remembering everything the first season left off at, and I'm sure this killed off a lot of the potential wide-scale impact it could have had. I have no doubt that if it was one long season, or even if the gap was shorter, it would have permeated the community much deeper than it did, but as it stands, it wasn't even the most popular show of its own season. There was more discussion around Shield Hero, more fresh hype around Promised Neverland, and more memes around Kaguya-sama. This, I think, perfectly illustrates why it's so hard for anime today to get a sense of longevity. Right now, anime has become too segmented to have the same influence, and the community moves too fast to have the same staying power it used to. I'm sure it's still possible, it's just much harder. It has to be able to stand out from the dozens of anime it competes with every season. It has to be given a long enough runtime to have a lasting impact without big breaks if it's broken up into seasons. It has to be easily accessible on a streaming platform that the community will collectively access, and on top of that, it has to be, you know, really fucking good. I do, however, think there's a small asterisk to this point, as I think every generation will have a long-running shonen that defines that era and goes down as a classic. With it being the staple of gateway anime and its long-running nature allows it far more time to build the popularity and impact and staying power because, well, it sticks around for so long. So if there is an exception to everything I've said here, it would, of course, be My Hero Academia. I do think this is the one show that has done enough to be remembered for a long time to come, but I also consider these types of shows to play by a different set of rules than the Mob Psychos of the anime world. Because part of the reason the idea of classics has died is because, well, we don't feel the need to look back into the past anymore, like even if the past is just a year or two ago. There's so much to choose from now, what's the point of looking back?
What you see
that's the
as a
real
classic,
reason I wanted
the
to
definition
make this
changed
video,
with
because
time,
over
like
the past few months I actually did spend a bit of time to watch some classic anime I had never seen before, and it just reminded me why classics are indeed called classics.
I agree with you. Yeah, the definition
2 months
of
ago, I set off on an arduous mission to start the anime that had been sitting on my watch list for years, waiting until I was ready to take that leap of faith to finally watch it. Legend of the Galactic Heroes. It was an undertaking that was as intimidating as the reputation that preceded it. A classic so highly spoken of, it's literally been memed to death by many people, myself included, as the one show that's been put up on the highest pedestal. Anime won't be the same once you watch Legends of the Galactic Heroes, they said. And with this all in mind, what I found was exactly what I had expected. One of the greatest stories to have been told in the history of anime. A tale so grand, no other anime even comes close to the scale, depth and density of the saga told here. A production that took almost 10 years to complete, contained in a whopping 110 episodes for a one-of-a-kind experience you can't find anywhere else in this medium. It's not the kind of fast-paced, instant gratification anime more common today, but a full-length epic you gradually immerse yourself into. With a show like this, you can get so caught up in its reputation that it can be easy to forget how and why
watch it if it doesn't have amazing animation music. That's what
through this, it reminded me why there used to be this big notion that you should go out and watch the classics. Not just because it was a great show, there are plenty of great shows that are coming out right now, but because it's a unique experience from anything you can find today. There's a reason the classics have survived the passage of time. They might have pioneered something, they might have left a deep impression on the audience of their time, but most importantly, it's because throughout the years that came after, nothing came along that was able to replace them. I can safely say since I first watched Cowboy Bebop, there hasn't been any other show quite like it. Serial Experiments Lain has a depiction of technology that somehow seems more relevant today than when it came out in 1998. Akira still looks better than 90% of the anime coming out now. Neon Genesis Evangelion redefines what it means to be genre-defining. It can be easy to forget through the current sea of isekai power fantasy high school rom-coms of today that anime didn't always look like this. So if you think this season is a little slow and you have some time to fill, just pick a classic title that's been collecting dust in your watch list, and I guarantee it'll be a way more fulfilling experience than watching another disposable show that's been airing in the last year. Whether or not you agree on which anime counts as classics, or even if you disagree with my opinion that we haven't gotten any recently, I think it's important to keep the idea of classics alive, because it does feel like lately there's been a depreciation in the value of longevity and revisiting the past. So if there's anything I wanted to do with this video, it's reminding people that there is a reason to look back. It's taking a break from the current climate and having a look at a product of another time. It's having that realization of, oh, this is what everyone was talking about. It's experiencing a show that has done something to deserve to be remembered, because one of the saddest things I think could happen to classics is for them to be forgotten.
So, I have a lot to say. Yo, first of all, listen up, alright? It's not because it's a classic. It doesn't mean it's good. Being a classic doesn't mean it's good. It means it was good. It means it was amazing. And it was so good that it left a mark in the whole industry and community. But that doesn't mean it's good now. It means it was incredible at some point. I mean, I can find you classics, actual classics that are still good today. And I can find you classics that are horrible today that you won't be able to watch anymore. So that's why I really disagree on that particular point. And I mean, I don't know. I think like keeping the same definition for classic is unfair. Today everything changed. The whole fucking industry changed, the whole anime's changed, the standards are so much higher. So I think like classics is just a different definition from the nowadays anime. It's not the same thing. Obviously you're not gonna find the same thing as before, saying like, yeah, to nowadays we don't have the classics we had back in the day. You sound like a grandpa. You sound like you're 80. Like you're, yeah, we don't have the good old animes from our days. We're having the weeb grandpas, guys. It's this time of the humanity to get the fucking weeb old people. Anyways, my rant is over. I just wanted to throw my opinion out there. If you guys have opinions, you can throw them my way, whether it's right now during the stream or in the comment section. I will be reading. Anyways, that's my opinion. there you have it. Thanks for watching. Suck my ass. Follow me on Twitch. This is my outro. Click on this video or on this video or something. Get out of here. Go.